Alright, this is problem number 18, where it's asking you to solve the proportion in two different ways. And the first in decimal form, and the second in fraction form. And what that means is the answer here, you're going to transfer everything into decimals to solve it. And for fraction, everything has to be fractions to solve it. So for the decimal form, you'll have a decimal answer, and the fraction form, you'll have a fraction answer. The answers should be the same. In other words, if you were to have the answer in the decimal form, when you change it to fraction, should be equal to the fraction answer, and vice versa. You can change the fraction form answer to a decimal. That should equal the answer in decimal form. Anyway, you'll see that at the end. So what we have here is you solve it just the same way you would solve a proportion. You're going to look at this times the x, set it equal to this number times that number. But since you have that fraction there, you have to change the fraction to a decimal so that it fits in the overall problem better. So to do that, you're going to take 30 into 7. So 30 into 7 obviously doesn't go, so you add the decimal, and you put the decimal there, and you add zeros. So 30 into 70 then goes twice, and you make sure you put the 2 over that 0 there, but you still have a decimal there. So 2 times 30 is 60, and then you subtract, and that will give you 10. 30 does not, of course, go into 10, so you bring down this 0, and you have 30 into 100, which goes 3 times, which is 90. 90 will then give you a 10. So no matter what we do, we're going to keep getting 10, and then adding a 0 to it, getting 100, because we bring it down, and we'll get another 3. So it's a repeating decimal, 0.233 repeating. So now we can change our numerator here. This numerator then becomes this decimal, 0.23 repeating. And I'm just going to use the decimal 0.2333 for our calculations. We don't need to use a decimal too far out, and we'll still get the right answer front, but you don't have to. 0.233, and let's just do another 3. And then we're going to put that over 1.8, because all we're replacing is that fraction there, and the rest is still set up the same over the x. That is a 0. So we're going to solve it. 0.233x set equal to 1.8 times 0.07. 0.2333 x is equal to 1.8 times, since we're using decimals with dots and x's, let's put these numbers in parentheses so that we can use parentheses to indicate the multiplication. Alright, so we're going to solve for x, and in order to do that, you rearrange the equation. So how you do that is you're going to divide both sides by the 0.233. So, and that will cancel it over here, because that number over itself will equal 1, so x is left alone. And then we just multiply these two and divide by that number to get our answer in decimal form. So let's just bring up our calculator, and we're going to do 1.8 times 0.07, and then we're going to divide that by 0.2333. That equals 0.5, and we can round that number, and I'll just call it 0.540. So that would be our answer then in decimal form. So on the other side, we're going to do an answer in fraction form. So in this case, we've got two decimals that need to be turned to fractions. So let's take that 1.8, and that becomes 1 8/10. And we may as well use a reduced improper fraction. So let's change it to improper. 10 times 1 plus 8. So we're going to change the mixed fraction to improper. 10 times 1 is 10 plus 8 is 18. So let's change to black. Here we have 18. Then you put it back over the same denominator, and that will equal 1 8/10. But we're going to reduce that so that we're starting with something that has less work. So we're going to divide both the 10 and the 18 by 2 because they're even numbers, and that gives us 9/5. Okay, so that's what the 1/8 then, 1/8, what am I saying, 1.8 then becomes 9/5. And now 0.07 is simply 7 over 100, and we can't reduce that, so that's done. There's nothing else to be done there. I got this fraction because 7 is in the hundredths place, so you just simply put it over 100. Okay, so then we have that now equal to 7/100ths. So we can plug all of our fractions back into the problem. 7/30ths, and you have to really be careful. We're going to put that over. I'll make that bigger so we realize there's a bigger fraction there. 1.8 is now 9/5, so that's going to go over 9/5, and we'll set that equal to 0.07, which is now 7/100ths, and that goes over the x. And remember, we'll do our cross canceling. I'm sorry, really what it's called is solving it by a proportion using cross multiplication. So we're solving for x using cross multiplication. So 730x will then equal 7/100ths times 9/5. 9/5, whoops, 9/5 times, I'll put a little multiplier, 7/100ths will then equal 7/30ths times x. We're going to divide both sides by 7/30ths, just like we did over here, to isolate the x. So what that looks like is we'll divide by 7/30ths, and that will cancel out that, and we will have 7/30ths over here. So let's make it simple. Let's simplify this numerator first. So this over this way. So 9/5 times 7/100ths then becomes 63/100ths. That's just the numerator. All I've done there is I multiplied 9 times 7 to get the 63, 5, oops, times 100, which is 500. Okay, because we multiply the numerators, multiply the denominator. This is still over the 7/30ths, so we're not done yet. You have to now change this whole thing to a division problem, and I'm going to say 63 over 500. We're going to change that, well, we're going to divide it, but we change division to multiplication. 63 divided by 7/30ths. 63 500ths divided by 7/30ths, which then we change to multiplication, and we take the reciprocal of just the second number. So 63 over 500. Okay, because 7 can be reduced to 1, because 7 into 7 is 1, as long as we're going to reduce this by the same number, which then becomes 9. We can reduce 530, we can reduce this by dividing by 10. When we do that, we're just taking off a 0. So now we have 9 times 3, which equals 27. And we have 50 times just the 1, so it's 27 over 50, which can't be reduced. So that's the answer in fraction form. And we can check, well, does this answer, 2750, has become this decimal? And it should. So let's look at our calculator, and if we do 27 divided by 50 equals 0.54. So it comes out the same answer, but in two different forms.